Hey everybody, and welcome to This Week in Hell, the first one of the new year. Okay, let's get into this Honey thing. If you hadn't heard, the browser plugin Honey has gotten into a bit of trouble, shall we say, in recent weeks after YouTuber Megalag released a video on what can only be called one of the biggest scams in YouTube history. Certainly one of the biggest sponsorship scams. And there's a lot of those going around. Watch Megalag's video for a much more thorough breakdown. He did the legwork. He should get the credit for it. Essentially, what happened is that Honey was subbing out their own links at the checkout and taking the sale from the people they were sponsoring, and then getting the money for themselves. This is a perfect example of a case of where it seemed too good to be true, and it actually was. Apparently, at least one YouTuber, I think Linus from Linus Tech Tips, worked it out before anyone else did, and then proceeded to keep it to themselves after cutting off contact with Honey. So where does that leave us now? Well, where that leaves us now is you should all go and uninstall the add-on if you have it in your browser. Honey is now the subject of a class action lawsuit in which YouTube's own full-time lawyer and part-time sexy man Devin Stone, aka Legal Eagle, is playing a part. It's likely going to take a very long time to get results for the proceedings. And if you are a channel who has been affected by their actions, you might want to look into getting on board with this. Speaking personally, even when we all thought it worked as described, when it was legitimate and wasn't a hustle, I was never comfortable with the notion of having something other than the seller and the bank involved in the transaction process. And I'm Scottish, so you can imagine how much effort it took me to turn down all those apparently awesome bargains. And next up we have Stephen Fry. Stephen Fry was announced as being the recipient of a knighthood in the King's New Year's Honours list. This came as a bit of a surprise to me, as I thought he was a knight already. I certainly would have called him Sir had I ever met him. After a bit of a rocky time in his younger days, in which he went on a bit of a spending spree with a stolen credit card, Stephen got himself on the straight and narrow, and actually even managed to get himself into Queen's College in Cambridge. He'd also been working as a teacher prior to that. He even went back during breaks and continued to teach. And in Cambridge, he joined the very long-running performance troupe, the Footlights, which is still going strong to this day. It was there that his blossoming love of performing and writing formed, and formed lifelong friendships with the likes of Emma Thompson, John Sessions, and his comedy partner Hugh Laurie, as well as many other names who had gone to become mainstays of British and international entertainment. Really, if you look at the people who have been in the Footlights over the years, even just Stephen Fry's era alone is kind of ridiculous. Stephen has, throughout his life, he's struggled with mental illness, but he seems to be doing quite well at the moment, and he and his husband Elliot Spencer married in 2015, and they split their time between London and Norfolk. This next one will shock you. I hope you're all sitting down. Apple, you know, the tech company, is up to no good again. I know. I did tell you to sit down. It turns out that Siri is a sneaky little bitch, because while you see Siri and her sisters are meant to respond to certain words or phrases, such as, "Siri, play Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley." Otherwise, they're just meant to be kind of, chilling out, minding their own business, and not, I repeat, not minding yours. But people suddenly found things they'd casually mentioned in conversations with friends, certain products and such within earshot of their phones. They'd suddenly be getting ads for them. Apple has agreed to pay $95 million, which is a hefty sum if they aren't guilty. It also raises concerns about other voice assistants. Your Alexa records you, you know. Just as part of its basic function, it does record you. In fact, I only discovered this recently, after years of having one, and I figured, I can live with it, just for the convenience of turning the lights on and off with my voice, controlling the fans and such. If you check it right now, you go into the voice history, it will have clips of you and those in your house, which is it's had stored for years of the commands you've given it. Though only when you've addressed it directly. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention the Tesla Cybertruck that exploded in front of the Trump International Hotel. Putting the obvious optics of that aside, let me give you a rundown of what happened and where the investigation is now. On January 1st, early in the morning, a vehicle sitting outside the Trump International Hotel building in Nevada exploded, with the driver dead, and 7 others received minor injuries. In the investigation that followed, we learned that the truck was rented. The driver had shot himself before the bomb went off, and the bomb seemed to consist of fireworks, gas canisters, and apparently camping fuel. While the explosion was visually notable, mostly thanks to the inclusion of the fireworks, it did very little damage to the area. It has since been revealed that Matthew Allen Livelsberger is the name of the man responsible, a 37-year-old man from Colorado Springs in Colorado. At the time of the incident, he was on leave from the U.S. Army Special Forces, where he is an active service member. I've seen some people discussing it, referring to him as a veteran, but he is active military. An ex of his has said that he claimed to be politically moderate, but like a great many political moderates, he leaned more to the right or conservative, and was known to have voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and claimed that he would do the same in 2024. We can only assume he would. There's been no indication otherwise. He had left behind a manifesto, and he sent that to retired Army intelligence officer Samuel Shumate, which is said to have detailed information of war crimes and classified information among a number of other things regarding certain technologies. His training in the Army would have given him the knowledge he needed to have built the bomb, as well as his experiences showing evidence that he suffered from PTSD. And letters that investigators found of the remains of his phone, or phones, I believe there was 2 of them, showed that the attack was motivated by a desire to roust weak leaders from the government, citing Democrats, which seemed odd, given that the party he voted for take power today, just a few days after the attack. That was going to happen regardless. It is unfortunate that his mental health struggles did not receive the help they clearly needed. This wasn't noticed by his superiors, by the medical professionals he was likely under the care of in the military. They were perhaps a contributing factor towards him choosing to commit this act of domestic terrorism. And that's the legacy he's going to leave behind, that of a failed terrorist. And lastly today, we say goodbye to Jimmy Carter. As I'm sure you've all heard by now, former President Jimmy Carter passed away. President Carter was the 39th President of the United States, and during his time in office he saw the US through many crises, including the Iran hostage crisis. I'm not going through his whole career in office, that's for the historians to do. But while he had his detractors, and his reputation as president doesn't seem to have perhaps been the best one, the reputation and legacy he leaves behind in the decades that followed his run as president was one of kindness and compassion. He was both a diplomat and a humanitarian, doing good deeds both at home and abroad. Of course, one of the biggest organizations he was involved with was the Habitat for Humanity, where he could often be found in the thick of things, even in his more advanced years, with a hammer in hand, helping build homes for those in need. His wife Rosalind passed on last year, and President Carter is survived by their 4 children. He passed away at his home in Plains, Georgia, on December 29th. He was 100 years old. And that brings us to the end of This Week in Helm, at least for this week. We've got a whole year ahead of us. Does it bode well that one of the first major events that happened as the year began was an explosion. People. Anyway, I hope you're all having a good time as we ease into the new year. I'm aware of what day of the week I'm saying that on. I'm aware of what's happening today. But I hope you're having a good time regardless. I hope you're taking care of yourselves. I hope you're taking care of your loved ones. I hope you're learning to juggle or knit or whatever it is you want to do this year that you've told yourself is going to happen. But most importantly, God, I do yammer on, don't I? But most importantly, to me, I want to say thank you very much for supporting this little news endeavor of mine. I have a lot of work coming up in the next few weeks. I've been very fortunate that those of you who have been hanging around for a while, at least on the other channel, will know that I sometimes do freelance voice work. And I've been very fortunate to get a recurring client. And there's a lot of work involved in that. So there might be the occasional week coming up where I have to skip This Week in Hell, but I will try to make sure it's not more than one at a time. Until next time, thank you very much for listening and watching. I forgot which thing I was doing for a second there. But until next time, thank you very much, and take very good care of yourselves.